Okay, coming to today's class, we are going to discuss about functions. Okay, so these functions are very important part of Python programming. Okay, so because functions are used basically to reuse the code. Okay, code reusability is the main usage or advantage of functions, because you will not you will keep, if you keep on writing the same piece of code repeatedly, okay, that is not correct, right? So functions provides a functionality to use, okay, that piece of code anywhere you want. I mean, how many number of times you want, you can use that piece of code. So till now, so we have used predefined functions, right? So length of, type of, int of, list of, so all those are predefined functions. Okay, so in functions, so first of all, basically the advantage of function is code reusability. Okay, code reusability, that is a main advantage of functions. Okay, and inside functions we have two kinds. Okay, so two types of functions. So one is predefined functions, and the next thing is user defined functions. Okay, so user defined functions are the functions that we are going to create. Predefined functions means which are already created and we are using that in our code. Okay, as part of our code we'll use those functions. Okay, so I'll give some examples of predefined functions like length, type of, right, list of, int of. Okay, so all these, etc. So user defined functions, we have to create our own functions. Okay, so now let me show you the syntax of how you create a function. But so let me create a small string. So inside string, and if you click on a tab, and you are getting all these functions. These are all the functions, or you can call methods also. Okay, methods or functions, both are same. So these functions, you are going to, you like, if you are using this function, this capitalize is the name of the function. It's a predefined. Okay, it is predefined function which is specific only to strings. Okay, so and inside this one I told you, if you click on shift tab, you will have the information about it, doc string and all. Okay, doc string and all you will have. So that means it is just going to give us the information about, okay, information about this particular function. The similarly, okay, when we create a function, we can do a shift tab and we can see what happens in that. If we write whatever it does inside our function while we are creating, then it will have that capability to see. Okay, so let me just show you the syntax first. Okay, so coming to the case of syntax. So generally functions, how we create is, so in for loop, while loop, and if we have we wrote something like this, the keyword if, and then the condition, right? After the condition we kept our column and then write the statements. Okay, this is how we wrote our if, for or while loops. So coming to functions, we create a function using a keyword called def, which is nothing but define. Okay, we are defining our function. So function name. Okay, so always you will be putting a bracket. So when you are creating a function, you will always put a bracket, and inside the bracket you will put parameters. Okay, parameters. It is not mandatory to put parameters always. It is based on the requirement. If you want to put, you can put your parameters. Okay, parameter 1, parameter 2, so on. Whatever the how many ever the number of parameters that you want, you can put, and then followed by colon, and then your set of statements. Okay, statements, and then finally you will return something. So you can see return is in the green color, so which is a keyword. Okay, so when you are writing a function, you can return something. Return means you will be sending an output. Okay, you will be returning an output. So that's the case. So you can return some output, whatever the operations that you do. Okay, once you are completing the operations, then you can send out the output by using this return keyword. So return output, whatever the output that you want to send, you can send, or else you can also leave it like this: return an empty, none type, return none, nothing. You don't need to return anything, you can just simply write return and you can leave it, or else you don't need to write the return statement also. Okay, it's not mandatory to return, but if you want to send some output using the function, then you always need to return. So you can see here, when I am doing capitalize, this is the function. When I am applying capitalize function, I am getting the output hello, right? So this, it is returning the output. Okay, here it is returning the output. So that is because of this keyword only, this particular keyword return. So you can return your output. Okay, and one more time I'm saying, so def is a define keyword, and you can write your function name. Function name can be any variable name, okay, which follows the standards of variable creation. Okay, variable name, and you can pass in your parameters. Okay, what are the parameters that you want, you can pass. Otherwise, if you don't want to pass any parameters, just leave it empty. You don't need to put anything if you don't want. And here after that you need to put a colon, and then you need to take a tab space. Once you take the tab space, you need to write your piece of code. Okay, so for this particular statements, whatever you are writing, so you can write your code, your logic, whatever you write, and then finally you can return your output. Okay, and one more thing, when you are writing this capitalize, okay, in this one, when you are doing shift tab, you are having this some information. Okay, return a capitalized version of the string. Okay, so this information can also be inputted by putting here, by passing a text. Okay, so you can simply pass some information, sample information. Okay, sample information. I'll just write something, statements is equals to, let's say, or I'll say output is equal to 0. Okay, I don't need to put dots. So now I have created a function here. Okay, this is a simple function. So let's see function name. Okay, so inside the function name you have parameter 1 and parameter 2. So I'll give parameter 1 as some 1 and parameter 2 as 1. Okay, so but let's do put our question mark and see. You can see here, this is the information about our function name. So this is having parameter 1 and parameter 2, and the doc string is saying sample information, whatever it was created, whatever the information that you write here, it will be shown here, and then it is showing the data type and where the file is and all. Okay, so when you are creating the function name, if you execute this one directly, it will show us the error saying that we are missing two required positional arguments, which are parameter 1 and parameter 2. So while creating, we gave two parameters. Okay, so these two parameters are mandatory. So when you are giving here, then that means you have to pass values for these parameters. Okay, so whatever the parameters that you have, for that you have to pass the values. So for parameter 1 I'll pass something 1, for parameter 2 I'll pass 1. Okay, so you can pass anything. I can pass 100 also, doesn't matter, because I'm not using those inside the function. I'm not using that anywhere. Okay, so execute it. So I'm just returning the output is simply 0. Okay, that is what I'm returning. Okay, so this is how we can create a function. Okay, this is how we can create a function, and we can, this is function creation, function, and this one is called function calling. Okay, wherever you want to use this function name, okay, you can call n number of times you can call this function name. That is it. Okay, so this is how we create a function, and this is the syntax of the function, and how to write the doc string for a function. And so anybody have any doubts in the syntax of function, how to create a function? Okay, any doubts you can ask me. Fine then. So create, now let's start creating few functions, okay, with some sample functions. Okay, so create a function to, let's say, simply add. Okay, so to add two numbers, to add, multiply, divide, and subtract two numbers. Okay, so I can give any numbers, right? So previously, in the previous code, when we have discussed previously, I think, not sure where it is, but okay, fine. But previously when we have used inputs, right? So we have taken input for number 1, input for number 2, and then once we have got those inputs, so we have added, subtracted, and all, right? So now what I'll do is, so for this creation I'll use function. Okay, define operations. Okay, so operations between two numbers, so number 1 and number 2, number 1 and number 2. And now what I'll do is, so I'll add, subtract, and everything. Okay, I'll do all that. So but I'll write print operations. Okay, I'll do directly in the print. So print number 1 plus number 2. Okay, is equal to, so this one will be number 1 plus number 2 is equal to number 1 plus number 2. Okay, same thing I'll copy. So this one will be minus, and this one will be multiplication, and this one will be division. So minus, multiplication, and division. Okay, so execute it. Now my function creation is completed. I'll write a doc string also for this one. Okay, so this function does all the arithmetic operations all the arithmetic operations between two numbers. Okay, so that's what happens. So once we create this one, so you can check the operations. So you can see operations which takes number 1 comma number 2, and this function does all the arithmetic operations between two numbers, and then it is giving the remaining description like type and all. Okay, so number 1 is equal to 10 and number 2 is equal to 20. Execute. So you are getting all this information. Okay, so 10 plus 20 is equal to 30, 10 minus 20, 10 into 20, 10 divided by 20, all that. Okay, and one more thing, you don't always need to give number 1 is equal to 10, number 2 is equal to 20 like that. You can just remove this and you can give. Okay, so directly 10 will be pointed to number 1, 20 will be pointed to number 2. Okay, so like this, if you are giving, that is also fine, and this is also fine. And if you are giving in this way, this is called as keyword arguments. Okay, keyword arguments. We call this as keyword arguments based on the keyword. Here the keywords are nothing but number. Okay, number 1 and number 2. Okay, so if you don't want to give the keywords also fine, but if you have to remember the order, if you remember the order, and based on that if you are passing the values, then it will go correctly. And if you don't know the order, so for example, sometimes let's say you will have different kinds of parameters, and so it will be choosing those, you will have to choose the correct order, because each parameter might use for different functionality, right? So in that case you have to be more clear about what parameters you are passing to, what arguments you are passing to which parameters, like that. Okay, so otherwise if you are not clear, then you can use keyword arguments like this. Okay, number 1 is equal to 10, number 2 is equal to 20, something like that. You can pass whatever you want like that. And one more thing, so here I have passed like this. So when you are passing in the format of keyword arguments, you don't need to put number 1 first. Okay, wherever you want you can call it. So number 1 I'll call as, okay, separately like this. Okay, I'll call after number 2. Okay, you don't need to bother about ordering. Okay, order when you are using keyword arguments. Okay, so when you are using keyword arguments, you don't need to bother about the order. Okay, that's what the advantage here. Okay, but one more thing, if you are giving like this, then you have to bother about order. Okay, if you are giving like this, you have to bother about order. And one more thing, let's create one more function. Now I will discuss about default arguments. Okay, define, let's discuss about the program. So write a program to convert the given values to a list of values. Okay, so so let's say I'm going to have some inputs. So convert to list, something like this, and I have numbers. Okay, so number 1 and number 2, or let's say input 1, input 2, input 3, input 4, input 5, something like this. Okay, and then I need to convert everything into a list, right? So I'll directly do one thing, return a list, and I'll put everything inside this one. Okay, directly I'm just returning the list. So this function returns the given input to a list format. Okay, so execute it, and then once we got it, we will be convert to list. Okay, once we convert to that list, So we need to pass your values. So let's say 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so I have given 1 2 3 4 5, but while creating itself, let's say for in5 input 5, let's say I gave some value 50. Okay, I gave a value 50. So when I am doing this one, okay, when I'm giving the inputs 1 2 3 4 5, okay, you have given the fifth input as 5. Okay, but here the fifth input is already 50. Okay, already the fifth input is 50. Here it is 5 that we are giving. Okay, as we are giving 5, this input, this fifth input will be removed. That means the value 50 will be removed and the 5 will be replaced here. Okay, so the thing here we call default argument is, this is a default argument. Okay, this particular thing input 5 is equal to 50 is a default argument. So the meaning of this is nothing but, if you are giving the fifth value when you are giving the inputs, when you are calling your function, when you are giving the inputs, if you are passing the fifth value, it takes the new value only. Okay, it takes the new value only. If you are not passing, so let's do again, convert to list of 1 2 3 4. I'll pass only 4 values now. So if you are passing 4 values only, the default value will be sent out in the output. Okay, the default value will be sent out in the format of the output. Okay, this is the default argument. The usage of default argument is like this. By default, I am saying that this particular fifth parameter has a value of 50. So if you are passing 5 values, then the fifth value whichever is pointing to the fifth input, so then that will be replaced. Okay, the default value will be replaced with the new value. If you are not passing the fifth value, then the default value will be passed as the output. Okay, that only will be used. This is the usage of default arguments. Okay, this is the usage of default arguments. So any doubts, anybody till this part? Okay, so no doubts, huh? Fine. Fine then. So let's continue. Okay, coming to the case of I'll repeat the default arguments. Okay, so when we are creating this function, so I have given input 5 is equal to 50. Okay, so input 5 is equal to 50, I am defining initially only. Initially itself, that means while creating only, I am giving the value 50. Okay, so that means if when you are calling this function, okay, so generally you will call the functions repeatedly, right? Whenever you want to call the functions, you want to use the code. Okay, you will use the code whenever you want, right? So repeatedly number of times you will be using. Okay, but sometimes you will be passing the inputs and sometimes you want some default values. Okay, sometimes you want some default values and sometimes you want your own input. So in that cases, see, okay, so now I'll give you one example. So you all know the value of pi. Pi is 3.14. It's always 3.14 only. Okay, and if you are calculating area of rectangle, okay, if you are calculating area of rectangle, so sorry, area of triangle. So area of triangle, what you will do, you will have length, breadth and height of pH is the formula, right? Sorry, area of triangle, sorry, area of circle, sorry, because of pi. Okay, so area of circle, the formula for area of circle is pi r square generally. Okay, so you will have pi and you will have radius as your parameters. Okay, you will have pi and you will have radius. Okay, so let's say I will define so I'll put radius. Okay, and I'll give pi value as 3.14 by default, because 3.14 is fixed for pi, it won't be changed, right? It's a default value, so I always don't need to give input for pi value repeatedly whenever I call area of circle to calculate. Okay, so I don't need to give the input, only radius will be changed but pi won't be changed, right? So what I'll do is return, okay, return pi into r radius square, right? So now if I want to calculate area of the circle, I will just pass radius, that's it. Okay, my radius is 10, so the value will be 314. Okay, 314.0. But if you want to change the pi value, so let's say, so pi value you wanted to change something else like this. So radius will be 10 and pi will be 3.1476, something like this. Okay, so you just wanted to be accurate, a little bit accurate. Okay, so just calculate like this. Okay, you'll just calculate like this. So this is the usage of default arguments. Okay, so if you want, only you will change. Okay, until unless you don't need it. Okay, until unless you need it, you won't be changing it. So here, as per the formula pi r square, so pi value never changes generally, right? So that's why I'll put a default value for this. Pi is equal to 3.14. I'll put a default value. Okay, but if you want to change, if you want to be more precise, then you can put in more decimals and all. Okay, you can go until whatever the depth of the decimal point you wanted to go, you can go. Okay. So that's how default arguments work. Did you understood? Fine. Okay. Cool then. Okay. Like this, you can create multiple functions. Okay. So I'll give in the assignment part about this, all these formulas, and because later we'll be using. However, okay. So coming to the next thing. So scope of a variable. Scope of a variable. So there are two things in a scope of a variable. So one thing is global scope we call, and one more thing is local scope. Okay. So coming to the local scope and global scope is nothing but okay. So let's say a is equal to 10. Let's create a variable a is equal to 10. Now I'll define and a new variable, new function name. So global scope. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll put in a input. Okay, and what I'll do is I will assign that input to this one, and I'll return. Okay, before doing this one, what I'll do is I'll return a simply. Okay, so if I call global and local scope, okay, and if I call input 1 and pass some value 2 3 4 whatever, okay, execute, it returns 10 because I am just returning a, and I have already defined a is equal to 10. Okay, a is equal to 10 I have already defined. So wherever I use, okay, wherever I use the value a, it will be 10 only. Okay, wherever I use the value 10, oh sorry, value of a, so it will be returning 10 only. So this particular variable, okay, this particular variable is called global variable. Wherever I use a, it will be 10 only. Okay, of course if I change the value of a is equal to 20, then now wherever I use a, it will be 20 only. Still it is a global variable only. Okay, so outside of a function, if you are creating a variable and if you are returning anywhere in the code, so that is a global variable only. But instead so I'll just delete this 20 and I'll re-execute a is equal to 10 only. Okay, it won't change my output. Okay, now what I'll do is, so I'll create the similar kind of function. Okay, but what I'll do is I'll return, instead of uh, doing this, what I'll do is a is equals to input square. Okay, let's say now I am assigning this one. So what happens is, so call your global local scope function, and in this one I'll pass some 20. Okay, now execute. So here what happened is, when you are passing 20 to input 1, okay, 20 to input 1, so that will become 20 square. Okay, so now a is assigned with 20 square, so it returned a. Okay, returning a is returning the value, the output, which is 400. 20 square calculated here and stored in a, and we have returned that value of a. So output is 400. 400 is generated. Okay, now again if you execute a, it will still be 10 only. Okay, it will still be 10 only. So this variable a is equal to 10, as I told you, it is a global variable. Wherever you execute a, that will be 10 only. But inside a function, okay, inside a function, if you are assigning a value to a, okay, then this is only restricted to inside of this function only. This is called local scope. Okay, local to the function only. Okay, local to the function only. Simple terms, if you are a district first ranker, so that means you are first ranker for that district only. You are not a ranker to whole state or whole country. Okay, if you are ranker for the whole country, then you are ranker for that country only, not for whole universe, like that. So then simply again the same case here. If you are if your variable is local to that function, then it is restricted, it is limited to that function only. Okay, it is limited to that particular function. But if you are defining it outside of that function, okay, if you are outside of that function, then that particular variable is global. Okay, that particular variable is global. Okay, you can consider it like this. Okay, if you are referring only inside of the function, then it is local, and if you are referring outside of the function, then that is global. Okay, that is global. And one more thing, so you can make this possible, you can make this value as global. Okay, you can make this value as global also if you want it. That means the 400 will become the local global value. Okay, till now 400 is only limited to inside the function. Okay, but if you wanted to make it global, then it is also possible. So copy this, and what I'll do is global a. Okay, all right, there is a keyword called global a. That means whatever that you are going to define next, you can pass it here. Okay, you are globalizing that variable. Okay, you are globalizing that variable. So now whatever the variable that is coming here, then that will be globalized. So executed global scope of pass your 20. Now execute the function, you got 400. Now execute a, now a is 400. We have globalized a, so that whatever the value that you got for this part, it is now global. Okay, it is now global. We are globalizing it everywhere, so that wherever you use a, now it is 400. Okay, it won't be 10, it will be 400, like this. So this is the way, this is how we differentiate local and global variables. Okay, so local means only specific to the function. Global means outside of the function. If you define a variable, that is a global variable. Okay, inside if you define, that is a local variable. And if you want to convert a local variable to global variable, you have to use the global keyword. Okay, followed by the variable name. So once you apply global keyword, okay, then it is going to be globalized everywhere. That means that variable can be used outside of the function also. Okay, that is the usage of global keyword. Understood, guys? Any doubts in this global and local part? No doubts? Okay, fine. Clear then. Okay. Okay, fine. So these functions, whatever we have created till now, these are very basics actually. Okay, but there is one more thing called functions calling a like inside functions you can call another function also. Okay, inside a function you can write another function, you can call another function also. Okay, let's say for example, let's define one function, sample1. Okay, so this one, let's take an input, and what we'll do is we'll do input 1 square. So let's return it like this, input 1 square. Okay, so I'll create one more function, sample2. Okay, 1 second guys.